ladies and gentlemen. It's Brian. Look at him.
And Joe,
In a
thanks for joining
cave.
us today on this cold, nasty December day in Oregon.
You can tell by how dark it is here that there's no light in my neck of the woods. It's the sun just doesn't even bother coming up anymore.
Well, yeah, and you're surrounded by big trees, so you really don't get a lot of light in your house.
No, we used to have 17 trees on basically a quarter acre lot, which you can imagine is a lot. And I think we're down to 15 trees now. But
And they're not like little trees; they're giant firs.
yeah, yeah. We have an apple tree, so I guess we have 16 trees. But then the rest, 50, we have 15 like 75 plus feet tall
Right.
fir trees. And it's cool to have those trees. Literally during the summer, it does keep the house cool. But like if you look at our house from like Google, you can barely see the roof because there's trees.
Ah,
You know, at any rate.
so I'm sitting literally in front of a window, and so that's why and there's no trees in my front yard. Anyway, so I
Yeah.
get light. So today, though, we're just going to be talking about a variety of topics. Starting with how you doing getting ready for Christmas. You mentioned that you're mellowing it out this year.
Oh, did I mention that?
You said something along those lines. I
Oh,
thought.
I think when we were chatting before about topics, that was one. Well, we have done almost nothing to prepare. Vanessa's bought a couple of knickknacks that she can put around the house, but most of our Christmas stuff is still in our Christmas closet or in storage, basically. We just haven't really done anything. And then, Christmas in our family, like there's holidays when people come together. Christmas isn't one of them. There's not extended family doesn't really come over. And it's been that way since I think 2008, which goes back a while. What we used to have, if you don't mind me going into it, is we would have Thanksgiving at our house, and then we would go to my brother's house for Christmas. In 2008, after 2008, my brother was renovating his house. And so every year it was like, no, I'm still renovating the house. And at some point we're like, we're never going to go to Eric's house again, because this is his passive aggressive way of saying, I don't want people to come over to my house for Christmas. Hello, dog.
Go on, Bubba. Go. No. No. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Dog.
Anyway, so we just keep it simple. That we have a few kind of smaller traditions that we have, and we do on Christmas Eve. We do this little shopping spree where, there's including MJ. There's 4 of us, so everybody gets $50. Is it 50? No, it's $60 because that way they have $20 to spend on each of the others, and go to Target or Walmart or something similar. And by that time, everything's picked over and there's hardly anything worth buying. And so it's kind of a challenge to find something funny, interesting, maybe meaningful. We wrap them, and that way everybody gets at least 3 presents on Christmas. And usually I get a crummy t-shirt or 3. But that's fun, right? And then we do a dinner called My Favorite Things, and everybody gets to pick what they want for dinner and then share it around the table. So like Sam will get a pepperoni pizza, I get like chicken fried rice, whatever. It's just whatever we feel like that given year is what we're interested in. So it's nice to have those routines. So what do you guys do?
For me, growing up, Christmas was always a big deal.
Yeah.
Both Christmas Eve and Day. When I got married with Kathy, for her family, it was much more of an Eve thing, and so we always went to her parents for Eve and my parents for Christmas Day, which worked out really nice to have a nice, clear division, and so we didn't have to like, where are we going? Like it was clear.
Yeah.
But as my parents moved to Bend, and then with the boys were born in these last few years, and that most of the time for these last few years, we have been going to the Gaffneys for Christmas Eve, because they do a big thing, big dinner, that sort of thing. It's the standard thing, like we're gonna have a giant meal, and then they'll do a white elephant gift.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's something, of course, do Christmas Eve service before that. We have been going over there Christmas Day. Christmas Day now is such an odd thing, especially without my parents.
Yeah.
Don't know for sure what we're doing that day.
Well, especially with the boys.
It's different.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Along those lines, I was at my disc golf league last night, and somebody's going, we always play on Wednesdays. Christmas is on a Wednesday. And they're like, oh, are we playing on Christmas? And they're like, yeah, because like after 1 o'clock, there's nothing left to do.
No, yeah. Which is why it's one of the biggest days to go to a movie.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you do? What do you do? I mean, the morning is that you empty, you see people, you do the rest of the gifts, and then by noon, it's like, okay, now what? What? There's nothing to do.
Yeah.
What I did growing up was we would play with our toys.
Yeah.
We would go see other family members, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's over by well, in my house, by 10.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, same here. I mean, Sam gets up, he's getting up later, but let's say he'll get up no later than 7 in the morning. And so we're all getting up, and he's 16 now. So it's like, it's really more of a practical unwrapping, as you're aware with your boys, is like, what did I get? Cool. Move on. And it's not like it lacks in any, like nostalgia or emotion, or anything like that. I mean, it's
different.
It's just different. I do, like when you mentioned playing with your toys, I mean, I can still recall like getting presents from folks and then like, well, which one do I want to play with first? Or do I, and wow, I mean, all the potential for these. And so the day was just, okay, I'm gonna spend time with this one. I'm like, okay, well, now I'm going to go over and work on this one for a while. And now it's, especially for us, in our 50s, it's like, that's a nice pair of socks. Cool. What did you get? Oh, all right. Cool. All right. I mean, it becomes much less about experiential and more about living through what other people are getting.
I talked to someone on Sunday that I said, do you like Christmas? I asked them. And their response was, oh, I love Christmas. I love the lights. I love the songs. I love everything about it. And I confess this I really don't like Christmas. And part of that is because it's difficult for me, and it wasn't for her, to separate the sentimentality and the stress and anxiety of getting gifts and all that garbage from the just treasuring the people in your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's to me, it's difficult to separate the two. And so if it was simple and just appreciating the people, great. But it's so commercialized and it's so anxious. It's like, for so many people, I think it's like hopeful excitement. They want it to be amazing, but honestly, for most adults, it's garbage.
Yeah.
Because they're so stressed. And then the world breathes a sigh of relief, after the first. Because like, okay, good, that's over. Now can we get back to normal life?
Yeah, definitely. I find it's, especially, since both of us, our parents are gone, that we are now at that kind of the peak of the triangle, in terms of the family. Like you remember, like your dad was the focus of family get-togethers. And then when your dad left, you're like, well, how does this work now? And as a pastor, this time of year is busy, not just from a practical preparing messages and extra services and stuff, but because there are people that really need some extra attention this time of year. And it's very difficult, for me, like with music and stuff, there is potentially, there hasn't been for a while, extra work in terms of preparing more music or preparing certain events. And we're like, oh, don't you love this time of year? And like, well, it's okay, but it's busy. There's just more going on, and it's harder, that combined with, like you're talking about, the commercialization and all that. It's really kind of hard to find peace within that.
Yeah.
One thing we did last year, and I believe it or not, I've never done it before, and maybe you haven't either, but we went to the grotto.
I've been there before.
Yeah. And this is shortly after my mom passed, because she passed on the 18th last year. And I found it really meaningful, but because it was an opportunity. It was quiet. There was some lovely music playing. And for me, it was a really contemplative, reflective time to kind of really consider what the season is, away from, there's a lot of people around because it's a popular place to visit, but the nature of it, I think, lent itself to kind of engaging in a more meaningful way. So I think if you, not you specifically, but people are listening, if you're struggling with how to make things, what do you do with Christmas, if you feel similar to what Brian and myself, is in some ways you kind of have to be okay grieving the loss of traditions that have left for one reason or another. For you with your boys growing up and moving out, it's just a different dynamic, and there's some grief associated with it's just not going to be the same.
No.
And I think about that. I'm thinking about it now with Sam. It's just, at some point you wake up on Christmas and it's just, you and Kathy. You're like, I think Kathy's pretty cool. Yeah. And I miss the boys, and I miss my dad. I miss my mom.
And you wait for that day where maybe you have grandchildren and it starts over again for a short time.
Yeah. You get a little bit of a reset button with that. I'm a ways out from that, but
so weird hearing Jack the other day say, I think I'd like to have a family someday. Like, dude, what's up with that?
Let's focus on someday. Someday. Yeah.
So, did you have there's other topics we potentially wanted to talk about. Is there any particular ones that you wanted to talk about? I had one I really wanted to talk about, but
well, bring it. You want to talk about the either the woman or the Eastern Orthodoxy piece?
Oh no, it's the CEO thing.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is
real quick.
Go ahead.
You should provide context for people.
I'm going to.
Okay, good. All right.
I'm going to. It's just how people are reacting to it, and so the context is just that there's a CEO in New York. He was the head of one of the biggest, if not the biggest, insurance companies in America, and what was it? Very recently. I don't remember the exact date. A guy came up behind him and shot him. And yeah, it was a simple shot. He was walking from his hotel to this place where he's going to have a conference, and the guy just walked up behind and shot him.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting to me is the number of people who are really happy about it.
Yeah.
There are people who are literally, their response was joy, and there's some newscasters that have literally said my first response was joy. My son brought that up, and he asked me what I thought, and He said, because so many of my friends were like, this is good that this happened. And what to me, and I don't know, it'd be interesting if you agree. For me, it's unambiguously an evil. It's wrong to shoot the guy. I get why they think it isn't wrong, because insurance companies are pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they've done a lot. There's a lot of questionable things they've done. There's an argument that he was being investigated for some things he's done. Okay, so even if I grant that he's bad, and that he represents an organization, an institution in our country that's doing bad things, I can't. That doesn't justify just walking up to him and killing him. That's still murder. So, anyways, so that's kind of. I'm going to stop at this point and let you respond to all of what I just said.
Yeah, I can tell you. Well, much like yourself, I understand. I can understand how people would respond that way. It in some ways it feels like this is righteous judgment on being meted out against greed incarnate, yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. I can't condone it, because let's say what he's doing is evil. That if you're a person of faith, then your response should be, God's going to take care of this. It's not from me. However, if you are a person that has no hope outside of this world, then you don't expect that God's going to take care of it. And so you might take joy out of somebody taking it upon themselves to do this. And I mean, so I understand how a person might come to that. And I heard about it, and I didn't celebrate it, but I did go, there could be worse things that happened, and when I heard the guy carved deny and delay on the 2 bullets, that I'm like, okay, well, certainly premeditation is part of this, and this was a very personal thing.
Right.
This is
like you, I agree. I mean, I certainly am very sympathetic to the assertion that there's some things deeply wrong with our insurance industry, that they do a lot of deny for stupid reasons, and they delay because they can delay and make profit. I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, including, and I don't know the exact details, but something like they were going to stop covering anesthesia for the entire procedure. It's like, are you kidding me? I don't know if that's going to follow through, and I don't remember all the details of it, but even if I grant you all of that, it's not right. And what's interesting to me is the lack of being able to morally differentiate this, that it's just simply murder. Yes, he's wrong. Yes, but you just can't agree with that, because then you've got, as Jack put it, you're living in Gotham.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a reference to Batman, for those of you who don't know.
Right. And to a certain extent, I can see an interesting connection between this and the attempted assassination of Trump. In both cases, it's this idea of, well, I have concluded that this person is a bad person, so it is morally okay for me to shoot him. Like, no, that's what courts are for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just weird how we've gotten to this place in our society, and it's not just 1 or 2 people that we're happy about this. That's the part that it's weird. It's not just one person. It's not just a small group. There's a large number of people who just simply are happy that and want more people, more CEOs shot.
Yeah. Okay. So on the coming back to who, your identity as a Christian, not condoning this, but also recognizing that God has the opportunity to make something good come out of it.
Oh, sure.
Right. I can't remember. Vanessa and I were watching something the other day that we were just kind of astounded by. I wish I could remember what it was. We were watching Silo. Are you familiar with that show?
I'm familiar with it, but I've never watched it.
It's good, and I've read the book. But it's dystopian future kind of thing, in which very rigid structure of rules within this space where people live underground, because above the earth is you can't live on the surface.
Right.
But there are certain things that the leadership does that are morally not just ambiguous, but clearly wrong, but done in service of the greater good of the people within the silo. So, that's something that you can almost apply to the circumstance where somebody is like, I am going to take care of this because in the greater scheme of things, I'm actually helping the lives of the many that I'm ultimately going to help through calling attention to this are worth more than the life of this single individual who is morally corrupt, arguably. And
I certainly will agree that good can come out of evil. Absolutely. We're having a conversation about the healthcare industry. Yeah, sure, that's a good, but that doesn't justify the clear evil act. It just doesn't. But people are feeling like that's what they have to do to call attention to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it drives us into conversations of things like, and you brought it up, and I hadn't even thought about it. And it was like, is this part of where a person or a society goes when they have no transcendent God that they're accountable to or have hope to bring justice?
Yeah. It's like hedonism. There's another story we almost talked about that kind of lends itself to the topic of hedonism, that if you don't believe there's any hope beyond this life, you're going to try to extract everything that you can from it. Because you just don't have any hope beyond this. And I think that's where greed and hedonism, selfishness, all that stuff. It's like, oh, well, it's not even they're saying I don't have any hope. In some cases, it's like, well, you're stupid for having hope. I'm not stupid. I'm going to get mine, and I'll completely take advantage of your naivete and belief in an afterlife.
I added the hope in that their hope is that I can do. The hope is in them doing something here and now. They're not trusting in something beyond them to fix it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, for decades, Christian apologists have been saying that the atheistic worldview really leads to immorality because there's no foundation for it. And for a long time, people just dismissed it. And even today, you'll hear people dismissing it. But it really does lead to this. There's no reason from that man's perspective not to do this. You can justify that in his mind.
Well, it relies upon the innate moral goodness of people, which I think we've discussed with the sin that we are aware of that is part of us, is that without that structure or framework of faith, that we will tend to devolve into or back, we'll devolve back to, tribalism and violence. And, yeah. And one could argue that we've been heading that direction for at least a decade.
Where all that's left is personal agency and power, and what I can accomplish. What I think is right based on what I can accomplish. That's what's good. It's part of this whole, and I'm watching our time. It's part of this whole big movement that it's okay to lie, to cheat, to steal, if the end is worth it in your mind.
Now, here's the thing I don't get, though, is that there are people who are professed Christians who feel the same way, that in order to further the kingdom, or to try to create something that is more reflective of what they believe the kingdom is, that they can justify actions that are arguably not Christ-like.
I think part of that is as much as we don't want to face it, Christians are not that much different than our society.
Yeah.
They just aren't. And sometimes we're not aware of the way that we've taken in the patterns of thinking of our culture.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, where, ends justify the means. Ends justify the means. And that's no. Yeah. Well, thank you, Joe. I'm watching your time.
We need to end on a more of an upbeat note somehow, because we went. This
is why Jesus comes. That's right. Maybe next week we need to talk about all because this is so fun to me. AI and the changes that are coming. The most recent one, it almost escaped, and all of that's to point to, maybe Jesus will come back pretty soon.
Yeah, I should ask my AI bot if he's coming soon.
Yeah, it tried to escape. The newest one tried to escape.
I hadn't heard about that. I'll have to look.
Yeah.
All right.
Copy itself off as if it's the new program, and try to put himself on another server. Yeah.
Holy cow. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, the Terminator is only 30 years away.
Terminator's coming.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, you guys have a great Christmas. Jesus has got this. And that's, the whole fears of all the world going crazy. It's like, in the end, Jesus has got this.
Amen.
All right. Have a great Christmas. We'll see you on Sunday, right?
Yes. I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care.